William, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
You came to Kelowna in 2009.
Correct.
Tell us about that. How did that happen?
So I moved here with a partner. I was working as an engineer in Kitchener-Waterloo, and my partner got into a PhD program at UBC. We had to look at Kelowna as a destination, and I knew so very little about it. All I knew was a tiny little mountain town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So was it your first time to Kelowna when you moved here?
I actually had been to Kelowna as a child. We did a road trip. I grew up in Winnipeg. We did a road trip through to all the way to Vancouver, actually all the way to Vancouver Island. And I remember we stopped in Kelowna and we stopped by the sales and we have some pictures there, but I never really connected it until I got back. And almost months afterwards when I ended up back at the sales, and I'm like, this looks really familiar. So it was relatively new to me.
Right. So what was that like moving here in 2009?
Yeah.
We had a very slow real estate market at that time.
Yeah.
Did anything surprise you about the city?
You know what? When we came out here, it was very much like a sleepy little community. It was a little retirement community. There was the university, but as far as the kind of work I was looking for, there was really nothing to be had. I had applied for a number of positions, and it turned out that this was the absolute best time to start a business. So I ended up being in a position where I could take advantage of a community futures program. So that's what helped get us off the ground.
Great. So tell us about that. What did you get into with community futures?
So my first, I like to say my first love was very much computers and IT and all things geek. So when I got out here, I leveraged my engineering degree as pretty much a sales tool. It was, I could tell you exactly how a computer works from the transistor level, really the electron level, all the way up to through the software stack.
Wow.
So if anyone could fix a computer or set up a network, we'd be uniquely positioned to do it. And because it was still a kind of a sleepy retirement community, there was relatively little competition, so we got off the ground really quickly.
Right. So we are here in your studios at Highlight Creative.
Yes.
And we've got some great equipment here. This is going to be the best sounding podcast we've done yet.
I'm excited.
I think we're episode 36 now. So you're a technical guy, a tech geek.
Yes.
How did you end up with a creative firm?
You know what? It was very natural, actually. So there's an assumption that if you work with computers, you know everything about computers and everything that a computer touches, and a website was one of them. So we had built a website for ourselves, and one of the requests very quickly was, well, you built a website for yourself, can you build one for me? So within the first year, we were into the creative side of things, into websites, into content creation. So we were left kind of straddling. We're figuring out what really there was a market for in Kelowna. So there was the IT realm, the kind of the commercial IT and residential, but there was also very much a creative and web design field. And then I started subcontracting and working with other agencies. I was the one who wrote the first iteration of the Castanet app. So it was not only because I have an engineering background and software development, we got into mobile development because that was a natural extension. So we did the development of the Castanet app.
Nice. So is that what you're doing primarily now, web development and app development, or is it more marketing and creative?
It's very much marketing. What we learned and what we learned over the years was whether you're doing IT or app development or running a car dealership or you're a dentist, really marketing leads the way. You need to understand who your audience is, how to communicate with them, how they're communicating. And so all of these pieces, so whether it's a website or an app or a billboard, end up being communication tools or brand expressions. So we ended up almost getting pulled a little bit higher up to say, okay, look, let's work on the creative side. So very shortly after I built my first website, there was a second one, and then a third one. And then before long, we ended up recruiting a designer, and I brought down a friend named Tim from Montreal at the time, so he was our first developer. And then I imported another friend from Vancouver, Dan, who ended up being another developer. So it was a very, very quick growth for us.
So how does the technical side of things work with the creative side of things? So I guess with a website, it's got to work. Yep. It's got to not be glitchy, not crash.
Correct.
But it's also got to look good and be stickable. I forget what the term is, but stickability, where people want to stay on it and keep looking and keep exploring until they make a purchase. So tell us a bit about the synergy between you and your partners, how that works.
For sure. So you're absolutely right. I'm very much on the technical side. I'm immensely fascinated with numbers, with trends, with so we got into SEO very quickly. So when we built the site for doing IT, it was at that point it was called ITS Kelowna. I read through and I said, okay, here are the changes, or here are the things that I need to do to make this thing show up. And very quickly we started showing up at the top of for the results that we wanted. And that led into, and this was at this point, SEO was very much a starting kind of industry. And we realized there's a lot of things we can do for clients in that capacity. So what I like to say is I'm very much on the business and numbers side. So Tina, my wife, who's the chief design officer, she's the one who makes sure that websites look beautiful and they look pretty. I'm the one who makes them work, and I'm the one who makes them convert. So I'm very much on the business side of that equation.
Right. Do you both do sales, or do you have salespeople that go out and get the clients?
We now have salespeople, but when you first start off, you're the guy who signs the paychecks and the guy who cleans the toilets. So
right.
We did sales. Tina is phenomenal at sales. Tina did the design. Oftentimes we both built the sites, but as our team grew, we got to hand off some of that responsibility to people who are far better at those things than we could ever imagine because they're fully focused on it.
Right. Tell us how you met Tina and how you became partners in this business.
So I remember at one point, I got back to the office. I think I went to see a client or went to a meeting, and I got back, and the team at the office mentioned, they said, okay, there was someone who just came in, and you need to hire this girl.
Huh.
Like, oh.
Do you remember when that was?
It must have been about 7 years ago.
Wow.
But I remember getting this resume, and it was the most intricate resume. It had not only was this cut out and folded and had a little beads glued to it, but it was so well thought out. And I remember I'm like, this is phenomenal. So I called her, I brought her in, and we ended up working on a few projects together. But I remember having this meeting, and we both, I think, arrived at the very same conclusion that we didn't like each other at all. We completely did not get along. I remember having this meeting, and I was trying to explain to her some of the psychology of sitting in a meeting. Yeah. And I remember adjusting one of the chairs. I'm like, there's sometimes a power dynamic that ends up happening. So you want to have, and she thought that was the most manipulative thing, and I thought I was just having fun. But she thought I was an asshole, and I thought she was just crazy, which was good because we were both with different people at the time, and. So we worked together. We ended up working on a number of a dental project, a project for UBC, and then parted ways. Parted ways. And we didn't speak for I think 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it was just the project.
Was it a blow up or
no?
Okay.
It was a natural kind of end to the project.
Yeah.
She had her own client set, and I had my own clients, and. We both kind of just kind of gravitated away from one another.
Right. Well, that's a great story. So 2-3 years go by, and somehow you get back together.
Yeah.
What happened?
So we had. So I get this call, and I look at my call display, and it says Tina. I'm like, okay, I know this girl. I'm like, hey, how's it going? I wish Tina was here to explain the other side of it, but we had just moved Highlight over into this location. We have massive signage on the highway. We're on the busiest intersection of Water and Harvey. And I remember her saying, it was like, oh, there's an agency that seems to get it and seems to care. Anyway, so she, I think, had a bit of a sheepish moment where it's like, oh, it's this guy. And I'm like, oh, it was actually serendipitous because at that point, our designer was recruited for another opportunity, so she had to she resigned with us for a little while. She came back afterwards. Her name is Jamie, and she's awesome. But we had this vacuum. Mm-hmm. And we needed a designer, and it was just almost perfect. Mm-hmm. So it was right before Christmas, and Tina and I ended up sitting down and meeting, and I just said, "Look, here's the situation. Here's where things are at. If you're looking for an opportunity, it'd be great to work together, and let's figure this out." Mm-hmm. And then I went on a trip. I do a trip every year, and I went on this a little over 3-week trip through Vietnam, and I got back. And we started working together, and it was awesome. It was the most, she is so unbelievably passionate about design. Mm-hmm. And I love what we do. So it was just really neat to be able to work together. And it was purely it was purely a professional relationship for a long time. Mm-hmm. I remember working with her many late nights, and there was never any drama. It was just it was great communication. It was probably the most professional relationship I've ever had. And then in the long run, it ended up breaking down, and now we're married.
Right. Yeah, some of the best partnerships I've ever had have started off a little bit tense because we think very differently. Yeah. But when you look at it, in hindsight, it's like you complement each other. Your way of looking at things is really necessary to build your business. So do you think it was just a case of getting to know each other better, or personal maturity, or what do you think made it so much smoother?
Very much personal maturity. When we both, I know for a fact that I had a lot of growing up to do, and I still have a lot of growing up to do. As we might to be, we're very serious about what we do, but I don't think we take ourselves seriously just yet. But we endeavor to more every single day.
Luke Mankus is a realtor with RE/MAX Kelowna. He loves what he does. We asked Luke if he had any regrets about moving here in 2011, and he always says, yeah, one regret, and that is he didn't move here sooner. When Luke came here, he didn't know anyone. He didn't know the neighborhoods or anything or anyone besides his daughter, who was 6 years old at the time. So he knows what it's like. Now, he's an expert and has helped well over 100 single people, couples, families, and investors with their real estate needs in the Okanagan. If you're new to our beautiful city, Luke can help you get connected with great lawyers, dentists, carpenters, landscapers, swimming pool installers, you name it. And whether you're new to Kelowna or not, Luke knows real estate. He can help you find a great property, negotiate a good deal, and hold your hand all the way through the process until the day you get your shiny new set of keys. Luke is known as a no-pressure kind of guy. He's had clients where it took even a year or more to get them into a property. He just doesn't believe in rushing things. On the other hand, when you decide it's time to act, he's diligent, and he'll work day and night until the job is done. Give Luke Mankus a call or a text message at any time, 778-215-4273. Again, that's 778-215-4273, 778-215-4273, to chat with Luke about real estate.
Tell us a little bit about your growth curve here at Highlight. So it started off with you and your partner, Dan?
No. So what ended up happening was I did this IT company, and we actually had an office on Ellis Street, and we were there for 5 years. I remember waking up one morning, and I think it was a phone call at something like 6:30 in the morning, and someone said, hey, our email is down. As I'm sure you know, running a business, you're the guy who does everything, and you pick up the first call, and you pick up the last call, and you do everything in between. That was the moment I'm like, you know what, I think I'm done. Mm-hmm. I'm done with what I'm doing. I'm done with Kelowna. And so we started looking, and I ended up selling the business. Mm-hmm. So I sold to Northern Computer, but they were exclusively interested in the IT side of things, and all of my marketing clients that we accumulated over the years remained. So, but anyway, so I was done with that, and I kind of, friends would say I had this kind of like Freedom 30 plan, and all of a sudden I could go anywhere and I could do anything. I just had an exit from a tech company, and it was really positive. So I first went to Toronto because I'm like, oh, I want to go to a larger market, and I was there for a couple of weeks, and it was during the polar vortex. So for anybody who doesn't know what a polar vortex is, it turns a regularly cold city into a super cold city.
I think that was 2014.
Yes, it was. So 2014, I think that's right. Yeah, I think so. But I actually, one of my bucket list items was to do an MBA. I've always wanted to do a master's. I have an engineering degree, so a master's. It's often said that an MBA is a finishing school for engineers. During the time of running a business, there are a lot of deficiencies that you have. You're, I think, fairly decent at the analytical side of things, but when you get into the human resources side or the business side, there are deficiencies. So I'm like, you know what, this is going to be a really good compliment. So when I went to Toronto, I did a GMAT course to prepare for it. So there was this polar vortex, and I had concluded that Toronto's terrible.
Right.
And it continues to be terrible. It's a nice place, but just not for me.
Right.
I grew up in Winnipeg, so I actually went to Winnipeg afterwards, and then I actually had this trip planned, and I did a motorcycle trip through Central America. So I did this. I stopped in Vancouver as well. But I remember after this trip, I touched back down. It was like we were just landing in Kelowna, and it hit me. I'm like, I'm stupid. Why would I want to leave this place? Like, I live right downtown. I've got a great place. And what I had realized is burnout is a very real thing. And if you don't take a break, if you don't kind of step away from things, and if you don't give yourself time, no matter how happy you are with what you do, you can start to despise it. So I see it with our clients, and I see if they've been doing it for too long and they feel underappreciated or they haven't taken, and you can see that it's like, okay, I'm done with the business. I'm like,
right.
Are you really? And we get to, so it's neat. But anyway, so I touched back down, and I had this change of perspective. And at that point, I was already in conversations with a friend named Richard Taylor. And he's been running his own agency for many years too. And we're like, okay, you know what? Let's give this a go. Let's merge efforts. He had an office on Bernard. He had an employee, and I had my client set, and we became 50-50 partners. And we made sure, we did everything to make sure that this partnership and marriage was going to be really good. We made sure everything was aligned. We had the same vision. And within the first month, we're like, this is not going to work.
Really? Personality conflict or different
personality?
vision?
Yeah, absolutely. It turns out when you have two people who have a really clear idea of how to do things, and both of them are pretty terrible at compromise, you really quickly run into some headaches. But he had also had, we had just run a massive conference in Banff. It was the Cloud Factory conference. It was 550 people. Because we actually got into event organizing for a while, but we realized he's actually far more passionate about that. He also had a child, so he was I think he was ready. Maybe he was on the verge of burnout at that point, but he was ready to do something different. So the more we chatted about it, the more we realized, you know what, maybe there's actually something good coming out of this, and I bought out his other 50%, and then I took the company and ran in the same vision that we originally outlined. We want to build a world-class agency, but just in a different way, right. The way that I knew how. And I wished him all the best, and we still occasionally see one another. But we just had a very different approach to how to run it.
Right. Now, how many employees do you have now?
We have 24.
Including partners, so
yes.
24 of you working here.
Yes.
And, most of my life I had a real hard time doing long-term partnerships.
Yep.
So in real estate, for example, I like to co-list things and work on deals together.
Yep.
But being a part of a team was something that was always problematic because I have my vision very strong.
Yeah.
And most successful people, I think, do. They're very passionate and they know what's right and what's wrong and what's going to build the business and so on. How do you manage with 24 people now?
Well, so you do a lot of maturing, and I think all of those difficulties that you may have stem from maybe insecurity, maybe there's a lot of things that maybe you need to prove that this is the right way to go because it's my way, or and I think the more, again, I'm not anywhere near where I think I need to be, but it stops becoming about you, and you start having a very kind of humble approach to things, and you're far more keen to listen to other perspectives. You still challenge them, but you really need to listen to what other people say. And I think that's maybe one of the things that really changed from the first time I had met Tina. I really now try to hear what everybody has to say, because there's definitely there's wisdom there.
Yes.
It's sometimes it's not readily visible, or maybe we're not prepared to absorb it. So it takes a little while to get there. But we still make mistakes, and we still occasionally have disagreements with employees or with partners, but I think we're far more capable of dealing with them maturely now.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit about Community Futures? For some coincidence, I have had 3 different people mention Community Futures in the past week. So I always take that as a sign that something I should look into a little more. How does it work? What can you tell someone who's an aspiring entrepreneur and would like to know a little bit more about it?
Community Futures is a program. It's a government initiative that helps entrepreneurs get off the ground. There are specific criteria you need to meet. So the one, and I'm pretty sure the rules are still the same now, but you have to be unemployed but qualify for benefits. So when I had left Ontario, I quit my engineering job because I was moving, but I didn't realize that when you move for a partner, you actually qualify for employment insurance. Wow. So I remember looking into different government programs to start up a business before, but that was always the catch. I've never been unemployed in that sense. So I remember a month and a half of getting to Kelowna, I was having this conversation with my father, and he's like, "Are you collecting employment insurance?" He said, "Are you collecting employment insurance?" And I said, "Well, no, because I quit." And he's like, "Well, these circumstances, you should look into it." And indeed, I qualified, and all of a sudden, I get to be part of. So I started looking into Community Futures, and it was transformational. Like, it was a really good program. It was a really great group of people who cared about their mandate and cared deeply about doing it well. So the program was extremely robust and really well laid out. And they taught how to set up a business plan, how to go through the incorporation process. They made a lot of connections. They helped with the bookkeeping side of things. So it was by the time we were done, our cohort had a really solid set of businesses. So a number of people that I had met through the Community Futures program when I first arrived are still friends today and are still in business today. So the reason why I think you're running into them is they do such a great job.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about the business. I know you can't tell us too much, but I'm always interested in asking business owners their sense of the state of the economy is. Yeah. So as a creative outlet, you're seeing either increase or decrease in orders for creative work. Yeah. And do you do placement as well?
Yes.
So if you have a package for someone and they're going to ask you to do placement between, I guess, Google AdWords, Facebook ads, newspaper ads, or whatever combination, is it robust? Is it healthy, or do you see people kind of pulling back a bit?
I'm a hopeless optimist. So I will find the good and see the good in just about any situation, and that includes any economy. When we're in a down economy, there are businesses that thrive.
That's true.
When we're in a bullish economy, there are businesses that fail. So it's not to say that, it's just opportunities shift. So I remember when we started getting more into marketing, we started looking into what the landscape looked like. And it was a lot of defunct agencies. And there was a lot of agencies that were so heavily real estate and property development centric and heavy, that when that happened, their billables dropped by 90% or over 90%. And again, because I'm an optimist, I there's a really good lesson in all of that, and that is never go down the route and never put too many eggs in one basket. So yes, we see constant trends, but we've been around for like as an agency, we actually date back to 2004. So in the time that I've been with Highlight, it's been we've had many ups and downs, and we've seen many changes, and we've seen, but not to say that there isn't an opportunity in it.
Right. Okay. So tell us about your ideal client. If someone out there is listening to this and considering whether to work with you,
absolutely,
tell us a little bit about what you do and what kind of clients you love to work for. Sure.
So we have a rather bold vision statement, and the vision statement states we want to be the best and most badass agency in the world. We're not shooting for the medal, and everything we strive to do, we try to never compromise on quality and find opportunities that others can't. And I think we have the skills sets within these walls that can really find those opportunities and propel businesses. So the kind of businesses that we look for, that ideal client, is one that aspires to grow. We're not looking for mom and pop operations where it's like, oh, we want a status quo, or we want to grow 10%. The clients that we thrive and love working with are the empire builders. These are the companies that, okay, how do we solve this problem and now get into a new market, or build a new office, or find a new product, or build a line extension, or hire the next round of people. It's always businesses that are hungry for growth.
So they could start small.
Yep.
But someone who's got a vision that's very grand wants to grow exponentially.
Yep.
And if they're starting off small, that's okay, as long as they've got that vision to be.
That was the thin wedge that got us into the market. I firmly believe that while we couldn't compete initially to get the kinds of clients we wanted, we could grow those clients. We could help create those clients. So a number of the clients we started working with was literally for some of them were less than $200 a month that we had marketing retainers for. And we just said, okay, look, let's start. Let's see what we can do. And a number of the clients that we worked with, I remember we started looking at the analytics and the numbers, and we always strive to compare and connect and correlate what's happening in your business to what's happening on your bottom line. So we started looking, like a number of our clients, we had tripled, for example, website traffic. We're like, okay, so how does that correlate? If we drive 300 times or 300% more people to your site, what does that do? And it turns out, for most businesses, it's a one-to-one correlation. So if we triple your traffic, we triple your revenue. Wow. We did that for a number of clients in a single year.
Nice.
And all of a sudden, they're starting to finally understand, and this shouldn't be surprising, that if you do something well, the results will be there. And that's true for marketing, that's true for eating well, that's true for going to the gym. Just because you're doing something, it doesn't mean you're doing it well. But when you do it well, the results come.
Right. So, and that's where your skills of analytics come in.
Absolutely. Analytics and post-MBA now actually being able to connect.
Oh, so you did?
I did. Yeah, I ended up doing a 28-month program at UBC in Vancouver.
It's a lot of math, isn't it?
It is a lot of math, and it was also, I know my limitations, and one of them is distance ed courses are probably not something I'd excel in. And I also knew that when I started, I'm not sure, one of the things I mentioned was, I was like, maybe I need to get into a larger market. And so I wanted to do my MBA in a classroom, and there isn't one at UBCO. Right. So I actually had to go, I got into both UBC and SFU. I wanted to stay on the West Coast. I wanted to be in Canada. So I did my MBA at Sauder. So I actually did, there was a part-time MBA that required you to drive down for 3 days every other week.
Every other week, wow.
Every other week. So I put a lot of miles on. So I know every corner of the Coca-Cola. I put a lot. So it was a 28-month program. So I think altogether, must have been there, well, almost 60 times.
Right. Well, this show is designed for commuters because we can't really watch video when we're driving. I know some people do, but you should not do that. Have you ever watched the show Mad Men?
Yes.
And
yes.
How realistic is that? I don't mean like the smoking in elevators and airplanes and, maybe drinking 12 hours a day, but as far as the competitiveness and the partners trying to find that balance between keeping people competitive but also cooperative.
I'm a huge fan of incentives and motivating people through incentives, and I think that's maybe one of the things I got out of my MBA is figuring out there's the carrot and stick approach, especially in a creative world. People respond to incentives, and people respond like we need to create a happy environment, and we need to create a healthy environment. So while Mad Men had there was an alcohol-heavy kind of atmosphere, and arguably my previous partner, he was part of that. He started as a marketer and as a designer and in London. So he was part of that culture. He very much understood it. And we still have bottles of scotch by the entry for that reason. But I can't have a single drink and do any kind of analytical work. Right. I can't write a line of code or look through anything. So we actually drink very little. We have a number of people we actually have a culture. We've dropped off a little bit, but one of our clients is a personal training gym and One Life Fitness on Spedding Court. And we go there as a team twice a week.
Nice.
So we have this culture of healthy people. We have a culture of healthy eating. There's a lot of coffee. There's definitely very little alcohol, though.
Right. So I would like you to nominate anyone in the city of Kelowna that you find to be a fascinating person that you would love to see come on the show in the future, and could be from any field. So we've had professors, doctors, realtors, creative people, all kinds of people. So anyone that you just kind of admire and would love to hear me interview on the show in the future.
There are 3 people.
Great.
I'm not sure which ones you're going to be able to get a hold of. So there are 2 people in the tech field.
Okay.
They're both wildly successful and unbelievably great people. One is Corey Wagner from Banana Tag.
Okay.
I think he'd be...
What does he do?
He does... they do email tracking.
Okay.
They have a company. They now have an office in Vancouver. There are, I think, over 60 people now. They're in the Innovation Center. If you want to hear about culture and like building culture and a productive culture, they're the people you want to talk to. The other person, Josh Fraser from Data Nerds. They're part of the Innovation Center in the tech scene, but their office is right on Leon.
Okay.
They actually got a round of venture capital. I think it was over $2 million. So both Corey and Josh are wildly successful, and I suspect that they will continue to be. But they're also some of the hardest working people I know. Mm-hmm. And then the third person is someone who I vastly admire, and she was a neighbor, but a really good friend, Dina Kotler. She now runs a bed and breakfast, or a series of vacation rental places. Wonderful. She runs a bed and breakfast right around the hospital. It's called Crystalton Manor. And or I often call it the SS Crystalton, because it's over 100-year-old building. It's a beautiful home. It looks like the inside of the Titanic. It's just wood-clad and fantastic. So, Dina Kotler, I'm not sure which one you'll be able to get a hold of.
Okay, well, we'll try all 3. William, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you.
And thank you for the equipment.
Absolutely. Let's hear what it sounds like.
And, it sounds great in the headphones, so I'm sure it's going to sound really good. And, it's a challenge with that single mic because I got to cut every time we pass it back and forth. Yeah. This is more fluid. It's great. So thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.